Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dying time is here. That's right. We're talking about Skinamarink on Kill by Kill. Well, greetings and salutations, Internet. It's your old pal, Patrick Hamilton, coming to you once again from In This House. This is the Kill by Kill podcast, where we're dedicated to celebrating the least discussed component of any horror film, the characters. We're going to unpack all the gory details of 2022-23's Skinamarink somehow, in the hopes that an abandoned child's untimely stabbing in the eye is just the beginning of the jokes we can make at their expense. And as always, there's only one person I trust to help me look under the bed and not abandon me when I fall down the stairs. The one and only Gina Radcliffe. How are you doing today, Gina?
I'm good. We're just two little tiny pairs of legs, just running around a darkened house together, watching that old Balloon Land cartoon that was made famous in the Pee Wee Herman show. Yes,
every cartoon possible in the public domain is splashed upon the screen in this particular cinematic offering. What was there a childhood cartoon that unnerved you growing up?
Yes, I actually wrote about this for Daily Grindhouse some years ago. It was the Duck Tracy episode of Looney Tunes, where he basically goes to like this alternate city and meets like I didn't know. I kind of knew what Dick Tracy was.
Sure.
But I didn't really have a familiarity with the kind of mutated villains in it. And when Daffy Duck runs into like Neon Noodle, Flat Top, all these different, I think there's like a werewolf.
Yeah, there's all sorts of crazy shit.
Yeah, and it's really creepy the way it's done, and that he like kills them all.
Well, they're given that noir shadow treatment where
and they're kind and it's like and they're kind of ugly and very creepy, and that really used to like freak me out when I was a kid.
It's so tonally different than a lot of Looney Tunes that it is like genuinely unnerving, and it brings across that thing that eventually comes to life in live action in the Dick Tracy movie. That these are grotesqueries. They're not just criminals. They're physically deformed, and they are also the only people in town who are that physically deformed. No one else has this problem. But as soon as you join a gang, your head blows up like a balloon and becomes a prude. It just...
like your face just melts. Yeah, I don't know what happens.
Your face fucking melts. Your initiation isn't to like beat up somebody in town like in the Batman. You have to dip your head in acid and then like, you're one of us.
We're gonna back over your face with our car.
Just smush you, put you in the Play-Doh factory and work on you for a little while. And did you see the Dick Tracy Skypes in thing on?
I did not watch it. Our good friend Megan sent me a clip. She's, have you seen this? I'm like, no.
The lengths this man will go to hold on to the rights to Dick Tracy and never make a movie. This is the ultimate fucking fuck you.
Yeah, he's gonna be. I know he has in his will that like Annette's got to bury him with like the contract, like with the rights to Dick Tracy.
Like it's gonna broadcast something from the fucking grave.
It's a hologram, Warren Beatty. Don't listen to you assholes. Don't even think about it.
In this yellow trench coat, this like okayish movie from 1990 is for some reason when he has to hold on to fuck you, shampoo. You're nothing to me. Everything is Dick Tracy. Now I am all for royal fuck yous to corporate behemoths. The flip side of this is that the family of the creator of Dick Tracy is not allowed to profit at all from this motion picture or the future rights of it for someone to do anything with it, because he's squatting on those rights by, beaming into TCM every 25 years.
He's just like sitting at home in the Hollywood Hills, like pulling out that agreement out of his pocket and looking at it like Bilbo with the One Ring. Just gleefully flipping it in the air and putting it back in his pocket.
It's you and me, Hammerhead, till the end of time. It's such a weird thing to decide, like, I need to control the fate of this, when he was too old to be Dick Tracy when he made Dick Tracy. And now he's so old to be Dick Tracy, it's not even fun. And he's not even trying to be Dick Tracy. It's just, he shows up in a coat and hat. It's like, hey, how you doing?
He's just like someone's dad who, like, what do I dress up as for this Halloween party? Oh, just put on this yellow bathrobe. Just tell me you're Dick Tracy. I don't know.
Put on that goofy fedora you had that you got from the Chicago mob restaurant we went to, and pretend to be Dick Tracy. Look at your watch and talk to it, which is the craziest fucking thing, because no one will ever have a watch they can look at and talk to. So, oh my God, what a fucking weirdo! All right, what were we talking about again? Oh, Skinamarink. Skinamarink is a movie. It definitely is, for sure. A movie created by a director from Canada who had a YouTube channel for like over 5 years, named Kyle Edward Ball. And his bit was, you write into me and tell me what your that childhood nightmare that you can't get out of your head, that scarred you, right? Your kinder trauma. And I will try to recreate it on my channel. And these are all like 5 to 10-ish minutes long. And he has a very long history of them. He's built up a visual library of, how he brings across these nightmares. And then his goal that he set for himself is, I'm going to try to make a movie out of this. And before we get, there's hard to give spoilers to this.
No, there's everybody knows at this point, this movie's been out about 2 months now.
Yeah.
And the debate has been hot.
Oh,
as it always is. The most predominant complaint about Skinamarink, and I have the impression going in that I like this considerably better than you did. But the predominant complaint is that nothing happens in it. And that is correct.
Yeah.
I will not argue the point that there is little to no action in this movie. It just kind of ends. We are not given any sort of explanation as to what has happened to any of the adults in this situation. They have simply disappeared.
Yeah.
I think that the kids' mothers have died at some point, but this is before everything has happened. The father just sort of, we don't know. That's the point. We don't know what happens to him.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, to tell you nothing happens is not a spoiler.
Yeah.
Because that's what the primary debate about is, an hour and a half of just vibing, basically.
Yes, this is. There's 2 words that can aptly describe what this film is. A, it's an experiment. It's an experiment to see if it works on you. And B, it's vibes. It's not pleasant vibes, but it's vibes. You're either vibing with this or you are not. And so as a result, its effect on you is really dependent on both how you see it and the attitude you bring to it. If you're bringing to it, I've heard this is the scariest experience of all time, and I'm just going to be scared out of my wits, and I can't wait for the craziness to ensue, I think you're going into this with the wrong expectations.
It has definitely been a bit oversold.
Yeah.
I found this movie unsettling at times. But I was never at any point like terrified. I think that what it does very well, and I wrote about this in my review of it, and also on my newsletter. It captures the way kids, imaginations work,
right?
Where at the right time in the middle of the night when the shadows are falling, just so your own house can look like a very menacing place.
Absolutely.
Where you are like kind of disoriented from just being woken up out of sleep, or you can't sleep, and like everything just seems wrong.
Yes.
And I think that it does a good job of that. And if you are able to go back to that point in your own life when you were a child, and you had to leave your closet door open or closed because you thought there was something in there, it captures that well.
Right. It's the big three of being a kid. It's being alone, because you're not left alone often as a child. So that is a great unknown issue for you. 2, the dark. You cannot see everything, which is wrong and bad. Because as a child, you should be able to see everything. So being in the dark is already a massive problem. And 3, imaginary monsters. What is under my bed? What is inside the closet? What is down the hall? And I can't see it because it's dark and no one is here to help me. I'm alone. Those are the 3 primary triangle points of Skinamarink. And the entire experiment is to see what, if you can call him a main character, Kevin, how he reacts, adapts, and overcomes, but not really, succumbs to whatever is removing him from real life. And you can read that as just a straight up nightmare interpretation. You can add, okay, is this an imaginative way to put abandonment, abuse, divorce, any of those things that can be traumatic as a child? You can easily put an overlay on this and go, this represents X. And it does it pretty damn well. Whether or not it affects you is truly how you come to it and whether or not it puts you under that spell. I don't believe this movie can put everyone under its spell. It's just not that wholly universal a fit. And the other thing is, if you're watching it at home, you either have to watch it on the biggest screen you have and a very good sound system, or if you're watching it on a computer or iPad sort of situation, you need to have headphones on that have a nice surround to them and turn them way the fuck up, because you will just get distracted otherwise.
Yeah, I was very lucky that I actually had a screener of it. And miraculously, a lot of screeners don't, unfortunately. But this one did. It had closed captioning.
Yeah.
Which is good because I'm just basically using like regular the same headphones I use to listen to music on my phone.
Yeah.
And so there are points where I'm like, if I didn't have the captions, I would have missed a lot of it. Because this is very, very lo-fi.
Yes.
And there's a lot of ambient noise, presumably much of it on purpose. Because it does remind you also that no house is completely silent.
Yeah.
You've always got the sound of, electricity humming. If you've got like a furnace, you've got the sound of that. You've just got, one of the things that reminded me of was I would often as a child, because my home life was fairly chaotic, I would stay at my grandparents' house a lot, and they lived in an older house. And so, at nighttime, there would be a lot of creaking, a lot of groaning. And like my grandmother would be like, oh, that's just the house settling. And you know, I never really understood what that meant. That wasn't particularly comforting because it made it feel like the house was alive.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I don't want to think of the house as being alive because I am inside of it. So like, what does that mean in this context? You know, I mean, but so yeah, I mean, your house is pretty new, but I bet that
this house was built in 1952.
Oh, was it? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I got the impression that it was like sometime in the past 30 years.
Oh,
no. But you know, even still, I'm sure that you could the house just makes weird noises sometimes. Yeah. And it's like,
it's a post and beam in California, you know, like it has more windows than it does have walls. It really does shift. During the windstorm last night, because we were having 60-mile-an-hour gusts here, you can feel every single one of them. I am jamming chairs up against our doors. We have these, what they're called Cliff May doors, because they have 4 panels of single pane windows. And so this house is about aesthetics and not efficiency. We bleed heat when we have the heat on, and we bleed cool when it's summer. And the great thing about it is you can swing them open in spring and fall, and it's like the outdoors are your living room. And the bad news about that is when it's bad weather, whether it's too hot or too cold, you feel every fucking inch of it. These houses are alive in many senses. And I think this is the personification of that, in the sense that Kevin and Kaylee wake up to find there are no doors and no windows to this home. They are being eaten alive, essentially, by this house. So it is possible you could also add in the suffocation element of being in a family, that there's no way out of it if you feel like, I don't feel comfortable within this family situation. There's a lot going on in this very not much happens type of movie.
Yeah, I do like that. I appreciate that a movie is, you know, willing to kind of let the audience apply their own interpretation
to
it. You know, then that's, I think, one of the, you know, most difficult parts about being a movie fan nowadays is how you have all of these, you know, explained movie videos on YouTube. The movie Cocaine Bear is coming out the weekend that we're recording this.
Sure, yeah.
And there's the guy the Scott Seiss, the TikTok guy, who, you know, through his videos has become a minor celebrity to the point where he has a presumably small part in Cocaine Bear, but he made a video promoting it and saying, "Oh, you won't see any Cocaine Bear ending explained videos on YouTube." I'm like, yeah, you will. You absolutely will. Because people think that everybody needs the ending of every movie and the very specific meaning of it explained to them. And it's like, it's okay to let people project whatever they want onto the meaning of a movie, like what they think happens in it. I think that it's fine to do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's the difference between an examination of a subject, a rumination, taking in a film and go, how does this apply to me? How could this apply universally? Examining what the content of the film is, and taking that information in and going, how did I feel? What did this evoke in me? What were my emotions? How did I emotionally react to it? Or just blatant SEO hunting, which is something this podcast in particular has never been built to do.
We're just all over the place.
We're all over the place. Like I would love to be able to plan in such a way that I'm hitting on the anniversaries of various movies so I can profit off of them, because people are looking them up more often because it's the 20th anniversary of X. We've just never been able to do that. It doesn't feel like that's what we talk about, what we fucking want to talk about. And so if we're covering a lot of older junk, that's what we talk about. We're covering a lot of newer junk, that's what we're talking about. But it's always just what feels like what we want to talk about. And you suggested this, and my initial reaction was, but how would we talk about it?
Well, yeah. And I'd like to do, not from the angle of bashing it, because it is, it is funny to me to see the people that don't actually like it are very angry about it. Like they feel like they were misled in some way about
that is wild to me, because literally every horror movie is trying to tell you this is the experience that's going to scare the pains off of you, or whatever.
Of course. I mean, no horror movie is going to be like,
We should try to market, if we can, convince people that we're horror experts to a certain point. Go up to a studio and go, all right, here's the play. Now, the knife that stabs is, it's fine. Like, it's okay.
It's not very scary.
Listen, it's a great, if you want to sit in a room and eat popcorn, this is something you could do it to. Like, come on down to the Cineplex and pay your $14 to $28, depending on what part of the country you're in, and eat popcorn while watching The Knife That Stabs. And we'll see what happens.
I'm just thinking about the one of my all-time favorite horror movie trailers is an extremely coked out Stephen King promoting Maximum Overdrive.
Yes.
It's like, I'm gonna scare the hell out of you, and then like a guy just takes a soda can to the balls. That's like the best part of that movie.
True.
I guess that's scary.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, I've always said, because I work in TV, like your pilot episode should never be your best hour or half hour of television. It should always move upward from there. Like, it's great if you have a great pilot. That's really cool. You sold your show. It got on network or whatever. It got bought. Hopefully it stays on air, which now seems to be a problem. But ultimately, you want to go up from there. A trailer is the same thing. It's great to have a good trailer, but you don't want the trailer to become the best thing about your movie. Like, the Alien trailer, in my mind, is the world's best movie trailer. And it's great. And I watch it just sometimes just to watch it, just to be inspired. But Alien is just as good a movie, if not better. Whereas, I think Skinamarink is a really great trailer, and it's very effective at pushing a particular vibe out to people. And I think they geared themselves up for a flashier experience, when really it's about immersion. Can you sink into its vibe and let it carry you somewhere? And, whether or not it does really comes down to whether or not it works for you. It's an experiment in that way. And I think that is refreshing in many respects.
You have to be really open to, and I realize that this is a hard thing for a lot of horror fans, God bless them, but you have to be open to a new way of looking at horror. That not everything has to be in your face, you starting right off from a 10 and only going stronger from there.
Yeah.
That it's okay for a horror movie to actually be about something else. That, there's really no appreciable difference between elevated horror and any other kind of horror. It is just a person's interpretation of what happens in it. And I think that because so much of the success of Skinamarink relies on being able to kind of go inward and look at go back to a point when you were a child, and very easily suggestible to things. And a lot of people would love to claim that they were never scared of things when they were kids.
Liars. Bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like they cannot they cannot or won't go back to that point. When I was a kid, I was the biggest pussy you'd ever be in your entire life.
Well, I think it's a very
really
common
was.
reaction amongst horror people because, like, we've talked about it on the show. Like, the Pink Panther theme scared me as a child. That's how fucking just a complete wuss I was at that age. That something could get into my head and completely twist itself into something that is different than its original intention. And when it comes down to it is I am much happier to live in a world that has Skinamarink, We Have a Ghost, and Terrifier 2 and Barbarian in it. I want the breadth. I want all the subsections of horror. Not everything's going to work for me at every length, but I would much rather have that wide variety, that sort of variety that you ended up having in the 80s after the slasher boom, when everyone's like, people love horror, but they're kind of over this one thing. So how do I do that but different? And you got a lot of weird experiments, a lot of genre expansions out of this. And in the 70s, there's that neo-realism movement, and then you have the Italian giallo turning into nightmare horror, and all that stuff is not giving you a standard, this is what a horror movie is. And I think we all benefit from having a wider palette, but there's always going to be those people who are like, no, horror is this one thing, and God love them. I don't enjoy that conversation. It just doesn't feel interesting to me. It feels gatekeepy. It feels like you like horror simply to tell people you like horror. You don't actually like what it is.
Right. I think I can beat you on the Pink Panther thing. I have two things from when I was a child that to this day I don't. Well, no, the one I do understand. The other one I've never been able to understand.
Sure, go for it.
But two things that I was very scared of that had no relation to anything horror related. There used to be a series of commercials for the dog food brand Mighty Dog. Okay. That you're already laughing. I love it.
No, I'm on the edge of my fucking seat, Gina. I cannot wait to find out what this is.
So they would show a can of dog food and they would brand the dog food with like the Mighty Dog logo.
Sure. Yes. And
for some reason, in my little 5 or 6 year old brain, I thought that they were branding a dog. And every time this commercial came on, like I would just like begin to wail, like, why are they hurting the dog? Because it would show a happy little dog, and then this close up of like something brown that I did not connect to as, oh, that's a can, it's an open can of dog food.
Right, yeah.
And then branding it. And I somehow knew what branding meant. But
well, you'd seen the opening of Bonanza. You knew something.
Yeah, I noticed it knew that it involved like fire.
Right.
And I was like, oh my God, they're burning the dog. Why? Yeah. And like for a very long time, this would just deeply upset me.
Yeah.
And the other one is, do you remember the song Dreamweaver?
Of course, yes. Yeah.
Okay. So there is, it's not always the version played on the radio, but sometimes, but there is in the actual album cut of this, there is a very long outro that sort of sounds like this weird kind of space music.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And it was so eerie to me as a kid, because it kind of like, I realize it's supposed to give you the impression of just kind of peacefully floating through space.
Yes,
and, I mean,
you're
presumably
while you're of love,
right? Presumably while you're like stoned or whatever. But like it would be very eerie to me when I was a kid, and I don't like this. Like it's like it reminded me of just being kind of stuck in the dark. Yeah. And like I was like, okay, this is not comforting to me. This is bothering me.
Alone, the dark, imaginary monsters.
Just kind of floating. And it's like, no, I don't like this. And even now, like, not that I've heard Dreamweaver lately, but you know, the last time I heard, it's like, oh yeah, that kind of still, the hair at the back of my neck are still kind of racing at this part, you know? It's like, but yeah, so there you go.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Okay, so the Pink Panther is my big one. There are two others. One is existential, the other is just weird. The existential one is the concept of God. I find the concept of God unnerving in how it was presenting to me as a young Mormon kid. Here is this guy who is observing not only everything that happens on earth, but everything that is also happening in your heart, Gina.
Hey, dude, I was raised Catholic. I totally get that.
Like, this is a fucking wild ass concept that this guy, God, I know you're listening because you listen to all podcasts because you're a big podcast fan. So here we go. As far as like a marketing materials go, the concept that you are going to ignore all this heinous fucking shit, like that a train can derail in the middle of Ohio and pollute an entire neighborhood, destroy people's lives. And you're like, well, shit happens, but I don't know. You feel jealousy to your neighbor in your heart, Patrick Hamilton. It's like, that's fucking wild to me. I'm sorry. That is scary as shit that you're constantly looking over my shoulder like a goddamn stalker. Get your own life, God. So there's that. This is how I did not end up remaining in the Mormon church. The second is, which is also church related, strangely enough, the prairie. Because growing up in the Mormon church, you're told constantly about the pioneers who traveled across the prairie, the harshest conditions known to man, to find a spot that's all their own. And so the prairie was a place of hardship. The prairie was where people starved to death. The prairie was full of danger. The prairie was full of the unknown. Well, the prairie fucking sucks as far as I'm concerned. That sounds terrible.
It's like, that doesn't sound like much of a promised land to me.
No, and not to mention, let's get to the point where Brigham Young finally shows up and looks at this valley and goes, this is the place. And what they don't tell you is Brigham Young thought that was California. He thought Utah was California. And you're following this fucking religion. Granted, if you feel the spirit in your heart and this brings you joy and you're doing no harm to anyone else, that's fine. Be a part of the Mormon church. Enjoy that $32 billion that they've kept secret from not only their parishioners, but from the federal government in a slush fund that they just continue to make money on. Go for it. It's all you. But I'm not going back to the fucking prairie, okay? Fuck that noise. So yeah, those are my childhood fears beyond the Pink Panther. We also had crocheted clown pictures in my bedroom growing up, and I was not a fan of those at all.
I did not like closets.
Yeah.
I did not like sleeping with my bedroom door closed.
Mm-hmm.
I did not like sleeping in silence. I always had to, I mean, that's actually still true for me now. I usually still have to have like a white noise. I mean, it's partially because I live in an apartment building that I could hear everything going on at all times.
Yeah.
But I used to have to sleep with like a radio on. Like it's like, yeah, I was a very, very fretful child. I literally believed in alligators in the sewer. Bringing up religion again. I was Catholic, and watching The Exorcist had a very big effect on me. Mm-hmm. And that in turn turned me into a very superstitious child. That would, let's see, what superstitions did I believe in? Oh, the whole don't step on cracks.
Sure.
Because you break your mama's back.
Mm-hmm.
That you had to keep your mouth closed when passing a cemetery, because otherwise the ghosts would get inside of you.
or can you imagine? Here it goes. And you're like, oh, look, That 6-year-old's got their mouth open. I gotta get out of here. I'm sick of you dead people. I'm jumping in that 6-year-old.
Oh shit, hurry up, go up.
Go. Like there's a fucking bum rush of ghouls trying to force their way down.
Just launching at me like a t-shirt cannon.
Cram your ass in there. Come on, do it.
Those are the big ones for me. I'm sure there are others I forget, but I was very constantly on, and also because I had an anxiety disorder.
Here's a genuinely weird one for me that just flashed in my head. I'm like, yeah, of course. The Matterhorn at Disneyland. The Matterhorn at Disneyland scared the fuck out of me. Now, I would go in the Haunted Mansion. I thought that was great. I would do, Space Mountain, any of the other rides there, but the Matterhorn was not something I was okay with, primarily because you walk nearby it and it's got the howling, like of the wind whistling through the gaping hole in it at the time, because you could ride this, the cable car through it. And so you would get a sense of what was inside the Matterhorn, which at a certain point became, they had put Yeti inside of it. I was like, fuck now. Now it howls at me and there are Yeti loose in this motherfucker? No way. And so finally, I think it was like 8 or 9 by the time I got in it. And I was like, oh, it's just a very rickety roller coaster. Okay, I'm fine with this. But I was convinced that was terrifying. And the second Disneyland related one was the Country Bear Jamboree had one song where this guy would, this older bear would come out and sing this lonesome song about blood on the saddle.
Oh my.
And it is blood on the saddle. And I was like, holy, what the fuck is that? What is this bear singing about?
Did the bear kill someone?
A, that bear's riding a horse. B, he's seen other bear on horses. And C, a bear died on a horse and left behind blood on it. And it's just a terrifying proposition. There's just everything else about that show is fantastic. I mean, they make fun of the fact that he's bringing the show down. Not that the Country Bear Jamboree exists at Disneyland anymore. I believe it's still available in Disney World. And when we took Oliver to it, he was like, that's weird. I'm like, yeah, it is weird. It's a weird thing that happened and it continues to happen. But it's no tiki room, which is just basically cultural stereotypes exploiting the Polynesian culture.
But yeah, like Skinamarink took me back to a time where I was terrified to go in the second floor of my grandparents' house.
Sure.
Which was pretty inconvenient because that's where the bathroom was.
They had no bathroom on the first floor of their home?
No, just up on the second floor.
That is just bad planning, Gina.
It was just like it was a row home.
Okay.
Which is, a very common thing in the Philadelphia, South Jersey area.
Sure.
So if you needed to use the restroom, you had to go upstairs. And so like, remember who was it? Was it Martin Balsam in Psycho? Mm-hmm. Remember when he's like he's like very cautiously going up the stairs, trying to, see if Mrs. Bates is there.
Yeah.
That was me every time I would like to go to the bathroom at my grandparents' house. There was something very creepy and unknowable about like my other grandparents' house. Was like I basically had like the run of the house. I could go in whatever room I wanted. No one cared. But like my other grandparents, things were a little more locked down there. And when you're a kid, if someone tells you, don't go in that room, it's either something's very exciting in there or something's very scary in there.
Right. Yeah.
Like depending on your frame of mind, you might be thinking, oh, they're hiding presents from me in there.
Sure.
And, or others, another frame of mind would be, oh, maybe there's like a dead guy in there. Or maybe there's a not dead guy in there, which is even worse. But yeah, so I would go like upstairs to the restroom in my grandparents' house, and they were like, now, Grant, this was the house my father grew up in.
Right.
So, I mean, clearly, he was alive.
Yeah.
He's not alive anymore, but I don't think the house killed him. or did it? I'll never know.
Or, yeah, it had a long-standing grudge and just bided its time. It's possible.
Yeah, it pulled itself out of the ground.
And passing by a cemetery, jumped down his throat.
Exactly. Went 100 miles down to where he was living at the time and killed him. All the rooms, all the doors of the rooms would be closed. And I'm like, okay. So this is a real door number 1, door number 2, door number 3, which is the least horrifying deaths for me situation.
Right.
And, I go to the bathroom as fast as I could and then run back down the stairs. And I was an embarrassingly old age before I stopped being nervous about going upstairs there.
Yeah. The first house that we have, I barely remember. And then I think we moved to the second house when I was 4. So that's primarily the house that I grew up in. It was a 2-story Spanish style and had a staircase that was a short L. The return at the very bottom was only 3 steps. But the stairs that went up to the second floor where all the bedrooms was pretty long. And at night, the living room would be very dark if you were to look down the stairs to where the living room is. It would just be, we just didn't have a lot of street lights on our street growing up. It was just very dark. Whereas if you looked out the window, you would see the lights of, the golf course and the homes that were being built on the house above the sort of Glendale Country Club. I didn't live on the country club. That was just the biggest light source you could see. I lived near an abandoned Century 21 real estate office. that was the side of the street I grew up on. It was a perfectly nice neighborhood. But everything was very, very dark and gloomy. And when I first landed in that bedroom, I was the only one there for the first year until Casey was born. And even then, he wasn't stationed in my room for a little while. So I had a room that was roughly the size of my parents' master, but it would eventually be filled with my 2 brothers. So there was a lot of space that got increasingly smaller, shorter. You're in a cubby. What your room is your bed and a desk that you keep a large stereo on so you can listen to K-Day rap in the afternoon. And that's how you live your life. So my house got smaller and smaller and smaller. And it feels like, to bring it back to Skinamarink, the people around Kevin keep disappearing. And he's left with this unknowable entity that kind of runs his life and doesn't allow him to have an experience actual enjoyment. Everything's gloomy to the point where he eventually asks, when he's finally alone with this, whatever this is, can we watch something happy today? Because he's sick of the shitty cartoon. And he's told no. This is what life is.
Enjoy it, kid. and Kevin's supposed to be like 4, maybe.
Yeah.
That's another interesting approach that Kyle Edward Ball took, and also kind of tinges the viewer's experience and requires them to be a little open-minded to what they are seeing. Is everything that's happening is from the perspective of a 4-year-old,
right? Which
is the same age as my niece. So that as well made it an interesting experience for me, because of course, looking into a pitch black doorway would be scary for a small child.
Yeah. And
I know that's one of the scenes people, most gripe about is this very long static shot of a completely dark doorway. And there's so much grain on the film that you can your eyes can see something there if you really want them to. Do you know what I mean? You could see like shapes forming in the static. Now, whether or not they're really there or it's your mind kind of applying it, I don't think that really matters.
No.
I think that's all in what you are willing to let yourself see.
Yeah.
And to see how easy it would be to convince yourself, yes, there is something there. Which, for a child, that's, I am very old, but I am not so old that I don't remember what that was like.
Yes. Well, if you are imaginative, that imagination has many, many pluses, and it comes with a couple minuses. You can see things that aren't there. Your mind can run away with you, and you are left with the feeling that something is creeping around any old corner. That's a very real, circumstance for children's imaginations. And I think that's the part that works the best here, is it's really playing on that level. Whether or not you want to engage with it is kind of up to the viewer. So when I hear people really enjoy it, I'm like, that makes sense. And when I hear people very frustrated with it, that they couldn't get into it, that it just didn't grab them, I'm like, that also makes sense. That is what it is. You can either engage with it or not engage with it, and the results are going to vary.
But also, isn't it a wonderful thing that we're seeing so much new and interesting things? Like last night, I watched The Outwaters.
Sure.
Which like Skinamarink, it starts out, and my emphasis there is starts out as just a vibe. Like, a full hour of not much happening. But with The Outwaters, like, it's basically, I hate to use the phrase roller coaster ride because that's such a cliche at this point. But the movie, the first half of the movie does feel like you're kind of just holding, at the top of, a roller coaster waiting for something to happen. And then all of a sudden it's not even a roller. It just like then turns into like the Tower of Terror where you just like, just drop. And then after that point, it's like, what's happening? What the fuck's happening? And it's like, and it really just goes nuts. Like, it goes from like 0 to 20, like in like a matter of a few minutes. And again, I feel like people are going to complain because not much is explained. By the time it ends, you really still don't know what has happened or why any of it happened. But it's so intense and so over the top that, if you just let yourself go and not worry about, trying to figure out what's happening, then it becomes this really incredible experience. And for that one, I 100%, right, you have to wear headphones. Absolutely, because the sound design in it is incredible.
See, that's another one of those where the trailer really unnerved me. Whether or not the movie actually becomes what I've somewhat invented as a plot in my head is to be debated. But I was genuinely unnerved by what I saw. But I think there's a real experimental phase happening in horror right now that's very exciting, that people are trying to take it in different directions. Certainly, Outwaters is a real shift in terms of found footage. It's using found footage, which is now a very established genre. It is not new on the scene anymore, and going, where can I take this in a new direction? Skinamarink has some of that same feel. It's got the aesthetics of found footage, but no one's carrying a camera. It's locking you in a POV, which is very unnatural. Everything is either shot from below, like you're a very short child, or shot at an angle that is unnatural. That's what it has in common. And then on TikTok, you have the liminal space horror movement happening, where there's this 19-year-old kid who just got hired to make basically expand on the liminal space back room series that he has on TikTok, which is it's profoundly disturbing. I don't know if it's going to work on mass audiences, but it's definitely an aesthetic he's established. And also on TikTok, just in the last 2 weeks, there's been this don't look at your doppelganger horror thing that's happening, where there's a sound that's like, if you see somebody who looks like you, Do not engage with them. Just run. And it's always like a person going, what's over in that corner? And then them making the goofiest fucking face possible with shiny eyes. And you're like, that's dumb. But also, I keep thinking about it. Like, whether or not the execution works, the idea starts to creep into your head. Like, can you make a movie out of that? I mean, people have genuinely actually made movies out of this. So it's not to say that you can't, but horror is where you experiment. Horror is where you try something different. And if you cede control to something, I think you get a better experience out of it. But horror is also one of those places where people, and I definitely saw this when I worked at Halloween Horror Nights, where they would get scared by something and go, no, I'm taking control back and I'm striking you, the hired performer in makeup, because you dared make me look like a child. And you're like, fuck, man, you came here to experience not normal life. Stop trying to drag your normal ass shit into the fun house that we're having here. Like, this is a place to be scared, but not have any harm come to you. And I think for a lot of people, for a variety of reasons, whether they're dumb like that, like I don't want to look weak in front of my girlfriend sort of shit, which I saw a lot because I'm drinking too much, or it's just like I just don't feel comfortable releasing my control over my imagination over to this, and then I'm not going to have a very good time. Like you do have to, I think, work on that and allow yourself to experience whatever it is. Whether or not it works for you after that fact, at least you believed in the illusion enough that the proscenium went away and you engaged with the art emotionally.
Yeah, two things that made me much happier, that I gave up, that made me much happier as a person, was worrying about whether or not I looked cool.
Yeah. Because
I know I'm not cool. There might have been a brief time, maybe around like 1993, that I was briefly cool, but that did not last, and I never got that moment back. And also not being afraid to admit that I am an easily scared person.
Yeah.
And I am an easily entertained person. So it does not take a lot for me to watch a movie and say, yeah, that did what it said on the tin. You know what I mean? Is Skinamarink a little bit oversold? Yeah. I mean, but also all movies are a little oversold.
Sure.
That's
a component of marketing. That's how I make my bones.
Right. All movies, every movie that Stephen King watches is the scariest movie he's ever seen. And it's like, come on, Uncle Steve. Come on, Dad. That cannot be the scariest movie you've ever seen. You said that 2 weeks ago about the last movie you watched, but I think as far as hyperbole goes, positive hyperbole is always better than negative hyperbole.
Yeah.
Where I would rather hear somebody say, this is the scariest movie I've ever seen, and oh my God, I was up for days thinking about this, than oh my God, this movie is so bad it dug out my grandmother and shit in her mouth. And it's like come on, man.
What is the thing with you and dead people going in your mouth? Because this is now a thing, Jada. You really need to examine this.
Yeah, that probably is something I need to discuss with a therapist at some point. But I don't say that though. I mean, if a horror movie does not work for me, I rely on that optimal phrase, for me.
Yeah.
And I have said before that as much as we have, sliced and diced and julienned many slasher movies on this podcast, I don't personally find most of them very scary. No. I find them entertaining. They're certainly, gross, but have I ever spent much time worrying that Jason Voorhees was going to come get me in the woods? No. I mean, the original depiction of Michael Myers, because again, the randomness of selecting his victims, which was something that, after that point, the subsequent movies all did away with.
Yeah.
Which, ruined, for me at least, the scariest aspect of it. It's like, okay, well, I don't have to worry about Michael Myers anymore because as far as I know, I don't have any long lost brothers that are going to just show up in town one day and decide to try to kill me.
Yeah.
Freddy Krueger, but that's a personal thing with me because I have long had a history of sleeping problems. But as we discussed several times over when we did the Nightmare on Elm Street series, when he became Fun Freddy, Wacky Freddy, then he wasn't scary to me anymore. But, I know that people, but I would never, look at slasher movies and say, well, those aren't horror movies because they don't scare me.
Right.
No, those are definitely horror movies. And I do enjoy watching them for the most part. I just don't find them scary. But, it's people forget that this is such a personal thing and people apply so much of their own emotional shit. Like you and I are going to get a lot more out of religious themed movies than some people who like my daughter was not raised with any sort of organized religion. So something like The Exorcist, it's not really going to move her, I don't think. Whereas for me, it still remains the scariest movie I've ever seen in my entire life. And so when other people say, "Oh, I wasn't scared by that," I'm like, "Really?" And it's like, oh, all right. I guess some people just don't, it doesn't hit them on that very personal level, where they've wondered at some point in their lives if demons might be real or not, So
it's not a possibility. You haven't been told like evil is a genuine, physical thing that is out to get you.
Right.
And that's meant to scare you into compliance. And when you see that, realized on screen, that has a profound effect on you. Whereas if you don't believe that is not a core component that is built into a belief system, it can come off as fucking goofy. It just can. That's a real thing.
Yeah, like somebody pointed out that they thought that the scene in The Exorcist where the Virgin Mary statue is defiled, they think it's funny, and I'm like, no, that's horrifying. That's like, what kind of like super demon is going to, walk into a church and like stick a plaster dick on the Blessed Mother? I mean, that's who does that? It's like that's not funny. That's horrible.
I just did let you know, Gina, it's me. It's Jerry. I'm that demon. You can call me Captain Howdy, but we're on a personal basis. My name's Jerry. And the thing is, like, everyone said, oh, you can't go into church and stick a plastic dick on the Virgin Mary. And I'm like, well, watch me. Because I don't like boundaries, okay? I like to push things, right? And I got the plastic dick. I got the time. It's the middle of the night. That fucking priest was asleep. I was able to go in there and I was able to do all sorts of shit, right? Everyone's telling me like, you can't do this, you can't do that. Well, I did it. Hello, I'm sitting in this 12-year-old girl now. This is how I masturbate. You know what I mean? That's where I'm coming from.
Jerry, you made me lose so much sleep when I was a child.
That's kind of like my goal. I'll be honest with you. You're kind of like, oh, how dare you do this? It's kind of my job. And everyone's like, oh, but we have limits to our job. And I'm like, I think I can take this a little bit further. Like, let's see what we could do. And then these fucking priests come in, and when I was like, jump into me, and I'm like, well, you know me. I hate challenges. I don't like boundaries. I jump into him, and he's like, fuck you. Let's go down these stairs. And then all of a sudden, like, it's all fucking over. Like, I was having a lot of fun, to be honest with you. All right.
And then I wake up and I'm in Brad Dorff somehow.
Some fucking how I like wandered down the street and this serial killer is like, oh, I don't want to die. I'm like, well, I want to be in somebody. Let's like lie down for a little while in a straitjacket. And then all of a sudden George C. Scott comes into the room and he's fucking yelling at me constantly. It was a whole fucking thing. Anyways.
Gotta go. Bye.
I think it's the same voice as my cockroach voice, which is another character that has not come back.
Just a seasoned old guy voice.
Yes, right. Like every single character my son does is either like the sea life in the cartoon he watched as a child is either British or a hobo sea captain. He's got two characters.
Wait till the day he figures out how to combine the two.
That's true. Well, he's not skilled at, he's not skilled in accents. I don't know that he has the same component that Becky does. Like Becky can inhabit someone's voice. It's fucking crazy.
So she's basically like Meryl Streep.
In a way, yes, because she can crawl. What made her a good groundling, what makes her a very good writer for what we do, is she can see how somebody delivers something and just be in their voice. We, not to tell tales out of school, we wrote for Dolly Parton this week and Steve Martin, like two very different voices, but she could absolutely get inside how Dolly Parton talks, because she's seen 9 to 5. She's seen Dolly Parton in a ton of things. And you can kind of slip into a Dolly Parton cadence, and it makes writing her so much easier. And so that is a specialized skill, which I am completely in awe of. But she can do this, like when she's telling stories about, I went out to dinner with so-and-so, and she'll start to tell the story from that person's voice. She just slips into it. It's fucking incredible. God, I love that woman. She's so cool. I wish I could beat her, but as close as I can get is to sleep next to her every night. It's pretty awesome. I suggest everyone try it, but not while I'm alive. Wait till I'm dead. Jump in my throat, and then you can do it.
Yeah, exactly. Just drive past the cemetery. You find out where Patrick is buried. Drive past and go, and just wait for him to say, hey, and go like that. And then jump right in there.
The whole Mystery Science Theater 3000 Ave Maria. Ave Maria.
Exactly.
Dive in. Any other last words for Skinamarink, a movie we've definitely talked about for a full hour?
Look, read the reviews of it, test the waters. You know what you like as a horror fan. I am pretty pleased that I am open to a lot of things. I'm not super big on like heavy duty gore. Like I know at some point I should probably watch Terrifier 2 or, Terrifier 1 for that matter. But everything I've heard about, I'm like, Now see, there is a movie for me that's like, okay, well, nothing happens. Like, is there a plot in here? Or is it just like a clown running around, like tearing people's heads off and tearing people's arms off, then beating them to death with it, because that's like, I guess. Yeah, to me, it's a little bit like pornography, where it's like, I think this would be more enjoyable if there was actually a something pulling this all together rather than a series of just scenes. But again, I understand that there is a huge contingency of horror fans that love it, and I'm glad it exists for them. I would never say this is worthless, don't watch this. This, brings down the genre. So, if you're thinking about, should I watch Skinamarink? Again, look inward. Figure out what moves you. Can you go back like Patrick and I have and think about times when totally innocuous things seemed scary and wrong to you? Because again, there's a jump scare in this movie involving one of those Fisher-Price chatter phones. And to say that, it sounds like the dumbest thing in the world. But, you could see, okay, I can see why this would be a little scary to someone, especially a child. Yeah. Because the way he films it, the light, kind of just falls on, the little Google eyes. And it does kind of look like just a pair of eyes just staring at you in the dark. And it's like, what the fuck is that? And then it's this chatter phone, which everybody, I said online, everybody born between 1965 and yesterday, had this phone at some point. They still make the fucking thing. It looks a little different now, but
it's in every other preschool on the face of the planet because it's indestructible.
It's a recognizable, totally innocuous thing that would normally give you pleasant memories, like, oh, I had that when I was little, but he managed to make it, oh, okay, I guess in certain contexts this could look creepy, and I think that's what makes this work. But if you're not like, I don't know, then don't waste your time. We are in a horror renaissance right now. It could not get any better. Yeah. And so, watch the other 10 gajillion things that are floating around out there. Don't watch something that your heart you're not going to like for the express purpose of complaining about it. That pisses me off. Yeah,
don't engage with it to hate it. I don't think that's something like, if you find yourself hating it, that then you'll know. But just going into it with the sourest of intentions is not going to help. That does evoke a memory of Oliver at a certain point. I think he was 5. He came to us and said, "No more cars with faces." I like cars. I like cars, but I don't want planes and cars with faces.
I mean, you know what? I get that. I don't like this thing like the fucking MODOK. I don't like big heads with tiny bodies. That's just like, no.
MODOK's awesome.
I do. My ex-husband, who's a good friend of mine, he saw it, and I asked about the shot of like MODOK's bare butt because I haven't seen Ant-Man yet, and he's like, oh, you only set up like a split second. I'm like, fuck.
Let me see that hinder.
I was gonna say, I was hoping there was like extended shots of his tiny little bare butt. We are just being flooded with so much great horror content right now. There's that. Have you seen the previews for Swarm on Amazon? No, but I've heard good things.
Oh God, it looks so fucking good. I just cannot wait. It just seems right up my goddamn alley. So, and it's like that with like Yellow Jackets is coming back. We're getting so much. Just enjoy what you can enjoy, and don't worry about bandwagoning anything necessarily. And like we're in it, and we have been for a while now. It's just, yes, there's been some years that are better than others. That's true of anything, but we've had quite a fucking run. Like, people are doing a lot of interesting things in this sphere, and so I think it's worthy of everyone's time and attention. I think that's true of Skinamarink. It has eyes in it. So that just about does it. I'd say let's choose our own death venture, but people just fucking disappear. So it's a choice between disappearing, and staying in a house with one eye left. I don't know. No one's getting out of that house alive, I don't think, but there's really no representation of it. So we'll just skip that for today and say that Josh Hollis does all of our artwork. Go to joshhollis.com for what he does, which is pretty damn cool. And then go to Revenge Body Memphis at bandcamp.com to get this theme and all of our remixes. Gina, where can people find you on these here internets?
I write about movies and television at thespool.net. That's where you can find my review of Skinamarink. Other horror movies I have written about there recently include I did a kind of primer on watching Possession, the very, very disturbing 1981 horror movie with Sam Neill and Isabella Adjani. I also have a newsletter, which I've also written about Skinamarink. I've been thinking about this movie a lot, which like, again, that to me is, okay, this was actually a good movie if I am thinking about it weeks later. But that is GinaWatchesThings.substack.com. And finally, I am on Twitter under Gina Does Things.
Do it today, people. Check it out. You can find us on all the socials at Kill by Kill Pod. And of course, we have the Facebook group, which is super fun. It's private, though, so you got to ask to join. And we have a lot of fun over there. We've got a private chat by chat channel for you to talk with fellow Kill by Kill fans and myself as well when we're into it. And of course, go over to Patreon, where we are doing listener choice episodes, and we are also doing commentaries. We've done all of the Halloween movies, and also we're going through the Friday the 13th movies. So that's a lot of fun. Don't worry, folks. The body count will continue when we see you next, because now we are into the Ides of March, everybody. When we talk to you next, we will be reviewing the newest movie out in theaters. That's right. We'll be talking about Scream 6, something I'm very looking forward to. I'm not going to put projections on it like I did Halloween Ends, or Halloween Kills for that matter. But I am sort of hoping that this occurs over the course of one single night. And this is The Warriors via Scream. That's how I think this is going to go, Gina.
That would be great. And I can hopefully do, even though it's almost certainly not actually filmed in New York. I can hopefully do for this what you did for the Halloween movies with the Pasadena area.
I would love for that to happen. Or the Universal backlot, my other backyard. Totally. So we're usually we're not able to tell you what we're going to do next because we don't know, but Scream will be coming out at the next week. And so we won't be able to, it'll come out on Friday. So we can't get it out on that Friday because no one's inviting us to cool preview screenings, but someone can start to do that if they want. So the next Kill by Kill, we'll be talking about that. And then the very next week, we'll be discussing a very racist episode of Murder, She Wrote called Night of the Tarantula, which turned out to be a wild fucking episode. So you have that to look forward to. But that does it for now. Don't worry, folks. The body count will continue for myself and for Gina. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.